Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Friday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com. It's presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. So glad you could join us for the next hour to talk Giants football. Matt Sitek and myself, Paul Dottino, we are here with you to answer your phone calls at 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. I repeat that number all the time, even though it's at the bottom of the screen, and I know you folks can see it, but I'm thinking there might be some people listening on the app, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Right? Some young people just go right to the app. They don't go to the computer. Right? So maybe, just maybe, you're not looking at the screen. You don't see the phone number. And that's why I give it as often as I do. Right? Make sense?
Fair enough.
All right. Well, I've had some folks bust me about, why do you keep giving the number? It's on the screen. Well, because not everybody's watching. Some people just listen. Anyway, we've got an hour to talk Giants football with you. Giants looking at Sunday's game in Atlanta against the Falcons as an opportunity to break their 9-game slide. It'll be Drew Lock at quarterback. We know Tommy DeVito is out of the concussion protocol. Good chance that he's going to be the number 2. We don't know that officially yet. Brian Daboll did not say that for sure, but I'd say there's a good chance of that. Falcons obviously going with Michael Penix Jr. If you haven't heard the last couple of days, they have pulled Kirk Cousins, the veteran, who's really been having his struggles over the past month. They're still alive in the playoff race, but right now they are out of control of their own destiny. The Bucs would beat them in a tiebreaker, and that's got the people in Atlanta a bit concerned. So they're making the move to Michael Penix Jr. Other injury reports that we got from Brian Daboll today, I'm going to let Matt go over them in terms of guys who did not practice and what their status is.
Yeah, so there are 4 players that did not participate or are not participating in practice because practice is going on right now.
Right now.
Guard Aaron Stinney, who is dealing with a concussion. Linebacker Bobby Okereke, who has a back injury. Outside linebacker Patrick Johnson, dealing with a knee injury. And then cornerback Greg Stroman, who is dealing with both shoulder and shin injuries. So those 4 will not practice today. Coach Daboll said that Stinney, Okereke, and Patrick Johnson most likely will not be playing this Sunday due to these injuries. Stroman, he said, kind of have to wait and see, how he does in practice today. Paul mentioned already, Tommy DeVito cleared concussion protocol, so he will suit up on Sunday in some capacity. Mm-hmm. We'll see about number 2 or number 3. And then Coach Daboll also said that Brian Burns is trending in the right direction. Burns did not participate in practice on Wednesday or yesterday. Don't know about today, but based on what Coach said, I would expect him to be upgraded to perhaps limited.
Well, it's 2 days in a row he said he thought he was trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
So with back-to-back days of that report, I would say it's good that he's going to play. Besides, he's tough.
Yeah.
This guy's been playing hurt for weeks.
I was going to say, he's been on the injury report, I'm not going to say every week all season, but I would say most of the weeks, and he hasn't missed a game yet. So as long as he is physically able to, I would fully expect to see Brian Burns out there on Sunday.
Yeah, and that's going to be really important against Michael Penix Jr. because at the University of Washington and obviously Indiana University before he got to the Huskies, the one thing about Penix, nobody doubts his skill set, his arm, his ability to rifle it downfield, to hit the long ball, to even process and have good field vision. Nobody doubts any of that stuff. He showed all of that in college. But what Penix has trouble with, and this did show up in college. Now, the good news for him is it didn't have to happen a lot because he was on good teams. But he does have trouble when teams pressure him. He does get rattled. He does lose his accuracy. He starts to become erratic. He also has a lower arm angle, which in the NFL, when you have some bigger guys rushing the passer, if they can get enough of pressure and enough of heat on you, not only does that tend to rattle him, but it also makes passes more susceptible to getting knocked down and tipped. So if I'm the Giants, I think this would be a heavier blitz type of defensive scheme because in Penix's first ever NFL start, you'd like to put him in the most uncomfortable position possible.
Definitely. But I'll just say as like a counterpoint that for the Falcons, you probably are expecting this because you're putting out a rookie quarterback for his first career start, and you know that the opposing defense is going to want to make that rookie quarterback feel as uncomfortable as possible. in the pocket. But one of the biggest things that stood out about Michael Penix in college was he was fantastic when running play action. Probably the number one quarterback in the entire nation last year in terms of play action passing. So if I'm Atlanta, I am incorporating that play action pass most of his dropbacks, because when you have Bijan Robinson as a threat in the backfield, defenses cannot, sell out to try to blitz the quarterback and make him uncomfortable, because you're going to get burned by Bijan Robinson if you do that too often. So I agree with you. The Giants need to make Penix as uncomfortable as possible, disguise blitzes, do whatever you can to make him, not be able to anticipate who exactly is coming and from what direction. But if I'm Atlanta, I'm incorporating that play action pass as often as I can. And based on his success using the play action pass at Washington, he could find plenty of success doing it.
Yeah, the interesting part about this, and this came from some of the NFL notes that we get, Falcons have run play action pass in only 14% of Cousins' snaps. They haven't run it very much this year.
Well, that's because that was Kirk Cousins back there.
So now, how dramatically can they change their package within 1 week's time? I don't know. In theory, I appreciate what you're saying, and there's certainly some logic behind it. But that's why it always goes back to the first item that every defensive coordinator says, and that is you got to stop the run first. The only way the Giants can even try to dial up more blitzes and to give Penix more trouble is if they get him in a bunch of 3rd and 5s and plus. If he's in a bunch of 3rd and 1s, 2s, 3s, even some 3rd and 4s, they can probably shy away from putting the Giants in a position where they're going to be comfortable to blitz.
Yeah, and
you still got to stop the run first.
Oh,
and
sure.
Believe me, Algier and Robinson, they can run the ball.
Oh, 100%. I will say that these last 2 weeks, which, of course, these last 2 games where the Giants' defensive line has been the most depleted it's been the entire season, these last 2 games, the run defense, at least in terms of the opposing running backs, have done a relatively good job. I mean, they did a great job against Alvin Kamara 2 weeks ago. Not as great of a job against Derrick Henry. I know John and I spoke about this yesterday. You look at Derrick Henry's final stats, 67 yards. You mean going into the game, I think we all would have signed up for Derrick Henry being limited to 67 yards, but he averaged, I think, like 5 yards per carry or almost 5 yards per carry, and honestly was gaining, 4, 5, 6 yards per carry, especially in the second half with relative ease. But nonetheless,
The
if
big
you look
thing
at the
is
numbers,
he didn't get any big ones.
He did not get
and
any
he
big
usually
ones.
gets one in the second half of every game he plays.
100%. And so if you look at the numbers against Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara alone these last 2 weeks, the two of them combined averaging, I think, was just around 3.5 yards per carry, which in this week's game, if you can somehow limit Bijan Robinson to 3.5 yards per carry, you're going to be in great shape. But Bijan Robinson is, there's no disrespect, because Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry are 2 top backs and have been for years now, but Bijan Robinson is a whole other beast, because he has, I'm not going to say the strength quite like Derrick Henry, but close. He is a very strong guy, and he is fast. He is elusive. He leads the NFL. He leads all running backs in missed tackles forced on the season. And that is in both the run game and the passing game.
Well, he's tied for 6th in broken tackles, too.
In terms of just rushing attempts, he's 3rd in the NFL in missed tackles forced. But as we know, most of the time, he plays a pretty big role in the passing game as well. He's very capable of catching the ball. I mean, he's 3rd in the NFL in total yards from scrimmage this season, with over 400 of that being through the air. So, yeah, trying to contain Bijan is definitely got to be priority number 1.
And if you haven't bought into that worry after everything that Matt just told you, how about the fact that Robinson has all but, I think it's 10 games this year out of their 14, he has had at least 100 yards from scrimmage. And that only trails Saquon Barkley of the Eagles, who's done it 11 times.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of company he's keeping.
There's a reason why he was a top 10 pick just last
legit.
year. He's very
legit.
good.
And he's helped turn that team around.
Yep.
There's no question about that.
No bigger help to a rookie quarterback than having that guy in your backfield.
And so I want to just flip it for a second, though, before we get to our calls. This is one of the reasons why down the stretch you want to see who on the Giants is going to enhance their value going into the offseason. And specifically against the run, Micah McFadden has put together back-to-back games now this month where he has really stepped things up. Bobby Okereke's been out of the lineup with the neck and the back thing, and McFadden is really asserting himself probably like he never has before. He has absolutely added a notch onto his belt. That's important moving forward for the Giants because he's a young player who you love to see him on the way up. You love to see the ascension of these young players that we talk about all the time, these first, second, third-year players. This guy's coming into his own. We're seeing that. This is another great test for Micah McFadden going against these two running backs. And I'll give you somebody else. Jordan Riley, the last 2 weeks, as well, has probably shown the most improvement of any of the depth chart defensive linemen that the Giants have had on the roster this year, too. And you know what? Because of his physical skill set, which is unquestioned, the whole thing about Riley was his inconsistency, his ability to mentally process the game at the proper speed and to read all of the proper reads that he's got to read. Those are the intangibles that have kind of held him back at Oregon when he was inconsistent. His time with the Giants, he's been inconsistent. The last 2 weeks, Jordan Riley is starting to put some things together. And I'm starting to see something that makes me feel as though he can be a big part of this roster next year.
Yeah, well, a common theme for both of those guys is, while they, Micah was still getting playing time prior to Bobby's injury, but both of them kind of got their I don't know if playing time increased, but more responsibility due to injuries, and they've really stepped up.
They had no choice
with those opportunities because, of course, as mentioned, Bobby Okereke has missed the last 2 games, most likely going to miss this week's game as well. And then for Jordan Riley, I mean, take your pick of what defensive lineman has been out this season, and Giants dealing, the defensive line has been depleted with injuries. So they've both really stepped up. In terms of Micah, I mean, he was already putting together what was going to be his best season of his young NFL career prior to Bobby Okereke's injury. Now, in these last 2 weeks, I couldn't agree with you more. He has stepped up in the biggest way. I mean, that game against the Saints, that was the best game, I believe, in his NFL career.
I agree.
5 tackles for loss in the run game. That is unbelievable. He was a big reason.
And 1 for no gain. So it was a total of 6 stuffs.
6 run stuffs, yes. Which, according to Next Gen Stats, was the most that any defender has had in a single game this season across the league. He played a very big role in limiting Alvin Kamara last week, in somewhat containing Derrick Henry last week, Kamara the week before. He's really stepped up, and I feel like he already kind of solidified his role as one of the 2 inside linebackers for next season. But his play these last 2 games really, I feel like, just put a stamp that going into next year, barring something crazy or unforeseen, it's going to be Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden in the middle of this Giants defense.
He has played with much more aggression, much more assertiveness. That has actually led him to taking better angles and meant fewer missed tackles than he's had in the past, which was one of the weaknesses in his game.
For sure. And one other player, just to add to that, the same group of guys, with Micah McFadden and Jordan Riley, is Dane Belton, who last week... 14
tackles, right?
Last week, I think it was 15 even.
Was it?
Yeah, led the team. But last week, only the second time all season he's got an extended look, because obviously Tyler Nubin has been starting and playing almost every single snap at safety, and same goes for Jason Pinnock. But Belton had his second opportunity of the season this past week, and he, again, really stepped up. Now, again, as I mentioned a few times this week, it wasn't a perfect performance. He did drop that interception. It goes down as a pass breakup, which obviously is better than allowing a completion, but you would hope that he could
agree with that.
Next time you'd hope he could come down with it for an interception. But nonetheless, he really stepped up in his first opportunity in a while for extended action. He's going to have plenty of opportunities these final 3 games to really show that maybe he could be one of the starting safeties next year, because Jason Pinnock is entering free agency. We don't know if he'll be back or not. Belton has a chance to at least put a real, really throw his hat in the ring in these final, last week and then these upcoming 3 games to show, like, hey, we have Tyler Nubin. Let me be the guy playing next to Tyler Nubin next year.
Well, there's more than a handful of players whose tape over the final few weeks of the season, it's going to be critical.
Yep.
It really is. It will give the Giants a better idea of what their status is looking forward in terms of can these guys be an even bigger part of the plan. That's what this is all about right now, in addition to maybe being a spoiler and kind of ruining things for the Falcons, because they really can't afford to lose this game. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they still have a chance.
They still have a chance.
They're one game back from Tampa Bay. They actually beat Tampa Bay in both of the games, so they would have the tiebreaker. Unfortunately for them, Tampa Bay's schedule is on the relatively easier side of things, so they'll need a little bit of help. But yeah, I mean, if Atlanta wins out, they'll at least have a chance at making the playoffs. So always like to potentially play the role of spoiler.
All right, so we go to the phones at 201-939-4513. Jeff in Maine is first on the show today. Hello.
Oh, good afternoon, gentlemen.
What's going on?
So what I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season, I'm really interested in to see if there's any continued improvement in Evan Neal. And if there is, could you possibly envision him as the starter at right tackle next year, and then maybe moving Illuminor to swing tackle, and then also possibly starting Illuminor as a guard just to have your three best linemen in at the same time?
Here's what I'll tell you, because Carmen Brasillo, the offensive line coach, had a media availability earlier today. As a matter of fact, Andrew Thomas, I understand, is going to be speaking to the media today as well. Remember, coming off of, he's still on the injury reserve list, and we'll finally get a chance to see him again. It's been quite a while. But the conversation with Brasillo was, and he was asked point blank, what do you think about Evan Neal? What's his upside? Where's he going to go? And all Brasillo said was, look, he's the starting right tackle right now. We're working on him to make sure he gets as good as he can get, and that's what we're worried about now, this week. He does believe that Neal does have some versatility. He did say that. And, of course, they like all their linemen to have versatility. That's always been a big key with Coach Brasillo ever since he's gotten here. A lot of offensive line coaches feel that way. That's nothing unique. But here's the thing that I thought was interesting. In looking at the Giants' O-line for 2025, I think Evan Neal, in my opinion, has injected himself into being one of the top 5 guys, Matt. I think he had another really good game this past weekend. And unless he takes a step back in the next 3 weeks, he's going to be one of their top 5 linemen. So the question becomes, if Thomas is healthy and back at left tackle, is Illuminor the right tackle, or is he a guard, or is Neal a right tackle, or is he a guard? They can go a number of ways here, but I'm going to tell you, I'll predict it right now, Matt, that all 3 of those guys will be starting on the offensive line opening day 2025.
Well, I'll say this. With the offensive linemen that are currently under contract for 2025, Greg Van Roten is going to be a free agent. So, yes, as of right now on paper, I would have Evan Neal as probably the 5th offensive lineman. But I fully expect the Giants to add more bodies to that room in some capacity, whether it's through free agency or the draft. I will say Andrew Thomas, again, as you said, assuming he's healthy, he's got left tackle 100%. No questions asked. But because Jermaine Illuminor is under contract, the Giants kind of can afford to sort of go into, the offseason program, maybe even the start of training camp, and let those 2 guys kind of battle it out for right tackle. I mean, that's what the plan was kind of supposed to be for this year, but Evan Neal was hurt at the start of camp. And by the time he got back on the field, Jermaine Illuminor had already locked down the right tackle position. So Evan Neal's, I expect him to be back. Obviously, he's under contract. I expect him to be back on the team next year. I think he has played pretty well since coming back from the bench, since week 10 when he first got out there. I'm going to say I don't know if he's quite shown me enough where I feel fully confident in saying Evan Neal is, the starting right tackle or the starting right guard for the Giants 2025 offensive line. I think he needs to keep up what he's been doing the last few weeks for these final 3 games, because outside of the Cowboys game, in which he was matched up against Micah Parsons, and Micah Parsons makes most offensive tackles look not so great. Yes. Outside of that one game, Evan Neal has played pretty well. I mean, he's according to Pro Football Focus, he's given up 2 sacks, 12 total pressures in the 5 games he's played, And one of those sacks and 5 of those pressures were against Micah Parsons, which means across the other 4 games, he's given up 7 pressures and 1 sack. I think we'd all sign up for that across a full season, of course.
Most NFL teams would.
Yeah. So I think he has a chance to play himself into the conversation for next year. As of right now, I would still lean towards Andrew Thomas and Jermaine Illuminor being the 2 starting tackles at least, because Illuminor is just, he's a proven veteran and was playing very well on the at right tackle prior to being shifted over to the left side. But I agree that this could be the offseason where the Giants finally decide, you know what, maybe we'll give Evan Neal more of a look inside at guard and see if he can become our starting guard.
Jeff, here's what I'll say. He's still there, right, Pearson? Jeff, you still there?
Yeah.
Here's what I will say.
Yeah.
In my mind, after 5 games, Evan Neal's already, in my mind, proven that he's going to be one of the best 5 offensive linemen on the team. So that means he's got to be on the field somewhere. Now, are they going to be better off if Illuminor's the right tackle and Neal's the right guard? Are they going to try that at some point in the offseason? And will that be the best configuration? Or will it be a better configuration with Neal at right tackle and Illuminor at right guard because he's played more right guard? I mean, Neal hasn't played any guard in the NFL. Illuminor has. So is that the best overall configuration? But Evan Neal has, in my opinion, he has resuscitated his career, and I've seen enough, short of him falling on his face, and I don't mean that as a pun, falling on his face over the next 3 weeks, there's no doubt in my mind that he'll be one of the starting 5.
Well, isn't he almost like elite as a run blocker?
He's terrific
He
at
has
blocking
been
run.
great in his run blocking this year. That 100%, his run blocking has taken the biggest leap from the last 2 seasons. His pass protection has been a lot better as well, but his run blocking, I mean, he's literally moving defenders and running them over as if they're like, high school kids going up against
Jeff, if you watch him, all right, this week now against the Falcons, all right, when you get a chance, I want you to watch how many times he squares up on guys, much better than he used to. Okay, there were too many times he'd be in a battle with a pass rusher or an opposing defensive player, and he would be caught on an angle, and that's how they would beat him. Now he's squaring up a whole lot better, which is making all the difference in the world. In fact, to be honest, I think I don't want to use the word more aggressive because I always think he's had that in him, but when he gets those arms out there and gets that punch going and gets that jolt going, he's a very tough guy to try to beat.
Yeah, and then just as a follow-up in a related thing, I think our biggest weakness on the line right now might be the center, and so I'm also going to really be looking to see some improvement from the center, and hopefully that'll happen. So that's something I'll be watching. But then just one last question. I don't know if you talked about it already, but the starting left guard, if Stinney's out, do you think who do you think that might be, Azudu or?
Well, right now, the way the coach talked about it this week, he said that Jake Kubas was going to get a lot more snaps at left guard. So we would assume that he might be the guy there. And Kubas is a guy who impressed them so much in training camp that look what happened. He stuck around. A lot of people didn't even give him a second thought when he got here.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know for sure. Coach, as you mentioned, Coach did say, earlier in the week with Stinney missing practice that Jake Kubas would definitely see an increase in practice reps. Again, this is the unofficial depth chart, but nonetheless, on the unofficial depth chart, Kubas is listed as the backup guard at both guard positions. So unless, the plan is to elevate someone from the practice squad and have them leap over Kubas, I would fully expect Kubas to be the one starting at guard in place of Stinney this week.
Stinney's still in the concussion protocol as of today.
Yes.
So he's kind of running out of time.
I mean, he was one of the guys that Coach put in that category as most likely out for Sunday. So I fully do not expect to see Stinney out there. And look, it is hard to make an NFL football team as an undrafted rookie free agent, but Jake Kubas did it. He stuck around all season. He's finally going to get an opportunity.
He gets the Richie Soybert Award for the season.
Hey, well, let's see what he can do. I mean, at this point, who knows? I mean, we've seen the Giants find some undrafted free agent gems in the past. let's see what this kid can do.
Well, they love his work ethic. That's for sure. That's been something that impressed them all the way back from training camp. And you know what? Stinney's on a 1-year deal. So,
Yes.
so to be honest, he's been in the league for a few seasons. They brought him in. He's played okay. He's done exactly what he was supposed to do, be a competent, veteran, experienced backup who you could plug in if you needed him to, and that's what he's been. But I think if you're talking about potential upside, I suspect, after being in the league for a few years, we know what Stinney is. He's a solid, functional, competent NFL lineman. Kuba's, we really don't know what his ceiling is. I mean, is it possible that, much like Richie Seubert, this guy at some point could ascend to be a starting caliber player? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't gotten into a game yet, so no one can really answer that question yet.
Well, he's been in on special teams.
He has not.
That didn't work out so well
He has
last
not
week either.
started a
yes,
game yet, so
exactly.
we just really don't know. We'll find out this weekend. And not only is Stinney a free agent this offseason, but as I mentioned earlier, Greg Van Roten is a free agent as well.
Who's local, by the way.
Yes.
He's from New York. And
I'm sure he would love to be back. And
he loves Coach Brasillo.
He's played pretty well.
He loves Coach Brasillo, and he's a local guy. And he said one of the reasons he came back here, in addition to those two things, is that he's got family here too.
Yeah.
And he's got, I believe he's got a young child as well. So Greg Van Roten, I suspect if they want to bring him back as a versatile insurance policy, it probably wouldn't be a reach to be able to get him back at a very economical price.
I would think so too. And, again, he's played pretty solid football for the Giants this year. He played well for the Raiders last year. But in this season in particular, he's done this performance with coming in during training camp.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like he had a full off-season of training, off-season workout programs. He came in, the beginning of August?
Yeah.
And kind of was just thrown right in there. And he's played, again, pretty well. So I could fully could see Van Roten returning, hopefully on a team-friendly deal, as you mentioned.
And don't forget, from the minute he walked onto this property, it was almost instantaneous. He became the second-string center.
Yeah, I mean, I think literally like his first or second day of practice,
exactly,
he was taking a lot of snaps at center.
They knew, like, pretty much right away, okay, you know what? You're the best option if JMS goes down. And it was like all the other guys that they were trying during the course of the spring and when camp actually started, it was like, no, Greg's taking second-team snaps.
Which, just going back to the caller, the other thing he brought up with, John Michael Schmitz, I do think this kind of is an important 3-game stretch for him too.
Mm-hmm.
His performance has been a little up and down this year. I don't think we've seen the big jump that I think everyone was hoping that JMS would take in year number 2. Bringing Greg Van Roten back next year not only would give you a starting option at guard, but also could serve as just insurance for JMS, whether it's through if JMS goes down with an injury, or if his play just doesn't improve next year, you have someone that you feel comfortable slotting right in, and the offense line wouldn't miss a beat. So
yeah,
for more reasons than one, it makes a lot of sense for Greg Van Roten to return next year.
JMS has to get stronger. This is something we knew when he got here, that as a rookie, he was going to need to get stronger because he is an undersized technician. And his power quotient is going to have to be very, very important for him to win against certain matchups in this league. Even Coach Brasillo said today, there are times he's going to be in a one-on-one situation where you just know it's going to be a challenge. Well, he's got to fare better in those instances. The only way he's going to do that is to increase his power quotient. Because if you're in a one-on-one situation, there's no help. Okay, that's it. All right, you're going up against this 340-pound defensive tackle, and because of the scheme on that play, it's one-on-one. You've got to be able to hold up. And the power quotient is what's really going to help him out there if he can get that jacked up in year number 3. And that's one of the reasons why we talk all the time, right? The MO in the NFL, all right, is third year. That's got to be your breakout year by then. You can do it earlier. And if you do, wonderful. Everybody gets an extra slice of pizza. But if you don't, you better make sure by year 3 you got it going.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, he has another tough test this weekend going up against Grady Jarrett.
Grady Jarrett's been doing this for a long time.
And
it seems like forever. I swear to you, it seems like he's been playing for 30 years.
And he's been one of the best at his position for almost as long as he's been playing in the NFL.
Darn good player.
Still playing at a high level. So that will be a tough test for JMS this week.
Couple other items that Coach kind of addressed but didn't get too specific on. It appears as though the secondary is going to be a little healthier than it's been over the last few weeks.
It seems to be trending that way, yes.
Now, Drake London is really good.
Oh, yeah.
On the verge of a 1,000-yard season. I think he's caught, 7 or 8 touchdown passes? 7, according to my notes. Really, really good player. And very few drops. Consistent. He's steady. He's reliable. Very, very good player. And Penix will not be afraid to throw the ball deep to him.
Yeah, both him and Darnell Mooney.
Yeah.
Both of them are more than capable of catching the deep pass. They line up both of those guys all over the field, which is why it would be fantastic for the Giants secondary if, Deontay Banks, Cordell Flott, and Drew Phillips, if all 3 can return, which we don't know for sure, but all 3 of them have been on the practice field all week, and Coach seems to be at least a little bit optimistic that all 3 can be able to go on Sunday. Having all 3 on the field would go a long way in helping slow down those 2 receivers. Because, even Kyle Pitts as well, who's obviously their tight end and maybe hasn't lived quite up to the expectations when he got drafted in the top 10. But nonetheless, forgetting about his production, he is an athletic freak and a big mismatch for almost any defender trying to guard him. So they have those 3 pass catchers that they line up on the outside, in the slot, like all over the place. So having your top corners at both outside positions and in the slot, in Banks, Flott, and Phillips, would likely go a long way in slowing that Falcons trio down.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, back to the phones. Ron in New Jersey, you're next on the show. Hello.
Hey, guys, how are you?
Hi,
hey,
how are
Ron.
you?
Merry Christmas.
Yes, happy holiday.
I haven't called since the beginning of the year, but I've been listening. First, on a lighter note, Matt, I also grew up 10 minutes from MetLife Stadium, or it was Giant Stadium then, in Little Ferry.
Okay, I grew up in Englewood Cliffs. Very small
Englewood
town.
Cliffs. Oh, yeah, maybe 15 minutes, but I'll give it to you.
Yeah, a little closer to 15, yeah.
Okay.
Now, don't tell anybody, but the secret way to get down here, as we all know, is Moonachie Road. Forget the Turnpike.
I know that.
The 17, the Turnpike, Route 3, forget about it. You never want to come down on those roads when you get to a game on Sunday. Moonachie Road is the way to go.
Moonachie Road is the way I went in forever when I lived in Little Ferry. Now I live in Glen Rock, so I take 17 to Patterson Pike Road. But I'm there every week. I left last week at halftime to make a point. I was so disgusted. That's not really why I'm calling. So next year, maybe crazy one. I don't follow college football all that well. It seems to me it's pretty obvious we're going to draft a quarterback. I don't know which one. But realistically, is there a bridge quarterback if we don't? And specifically, is the Kirk Cousins situation possibly a Russell Wilson situation? Assuming Penix does well and whatnot. What other options? You guys do a good job, by the way, in keeping me from, too close to the ledge there, so I appreciate that. But, I'm in the Miller Lite Club. I spent 4 tickets. I spent a lot of money going to these games, and I'm not leaving. I've been doing it for 50 years. But you need some positives. So I'm just trying to think, if these quarterbacks in college aren't the guys, is there a plan B? And with the quarterback.
Ron, first off, if the Giants take one, even if they take one high, let's just say it is a first rounder, they don't have to play him right away.
That's a great point.
The obligation that the fans and the media puts on these guys over the last several years, you take a guy in the top 5, he's got to play right away. No, he does not have to play right away. He can sit his butt on the bench for a year. Of course. I'd rather sit him for a year, maybe even 2. I'm not going to be that way.
Amendment to my question, then. A little amendment.
Okay. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. You want to talk about quarterbacks who could be possible bridges. Now, because there are guys under contract, we're technically not supposed to address the
I
Giant
don't.
situation.
All hypothetical.
So here's what I'm going to do. If there was Team X and Team X needed a bridge quarterback, these are some of the guys that you would want to consider. There are two guys who have won games in this league before who are currently not affiliated to any team. So you can absolutely talk about them if you like right now anyway. Ryan Tannehill is one such guy. Teddy Bridgewater is another such guy. Neither of those quarterbacks played this year. Tannehill wanted to play, but did not want to go to a situation where he was only going to be a quick emergency stopgap for a month. He did not want that.
Upper 30s?
I'm sorry?
How old are
He's
those
got to be in
guys?
his early 30s, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Take a glance on that.
Late 30s?
He is
I
36.
like Bridgewater.
Is he 36
okay.
already?
36,
Wow. So
yeah.
Tannehill's a little bit older. All right.
He'll be 37 come to start a training camp.
So Tannehill has been sitting out waiting for a chance to potentially get a call so that he could then work through the rest of the season as the guy. It never came, but he wants to play. So Tannehill's going to be available.
Okay. I didn't think of that.
All right.
Okay.
So Tannehill's a guy, and he's won games in this league before. All right. And obviously so is Teddy Bridgewater. And he's already announced this week that he's coming back to the NFL.
Well, he said he wants to, but
He
he's
wants
been
to come
he's
back,
been
right,
coaching high school football all year. Not guaranteed that someone's going to sign him now.
Kurt Warner was packing groceries.
No, I get that.
Right, but both of them, they played the year before. They're only missed 1 year.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, okay.
so those guys we can actually freely discuss because they're not affiliated with anybody. Okay? Now, guys who will be unrestricted free agents at the end of the year, we all know Sam Darnold, his deal runs out with Minnesota. He's probably going to get a tremendous amount of cash because of the success that he's had this season. Now, if you are Team X looking for a bridge, I suspect he's going to cost you a lot more than you would want to spend for a bridge
he'll make
because
too
he's
much
not
money.
going to be a bridge.
He's not signing a bridge quarterback contract.
No,
He's
Right.
getting a
You need
big
someone under
multi-year
$15
deal.
million.
correct. I think you'd like to get, yeah, for sure. Now, possibilities. There's a chance that Justin Fields decides that when his deal is out, done in Pittsburgh in March, that he winds up signing somewhere else. And you know it's going to
an
be a place
interesting
where
call.
he's going to be given a chance to start. Right?
Right.
Okay. That's one guy who a
okay.
bridge team might want to look at. I happen to be, and it's part of the Paisan Pizza connection, Jimmy Garoppolo. His
Oh, wow.
his deal
Haven't thought of him in a while.
ends at the end of the season with the Rams. Okay?
Okay.
He wants a chance to be a starter again at 33 years old, and he certainly has won games in this league before. Okay? So
Okay.
you get what I'm saying
good
here.
pick.
Team
Right.
X that's looking for a bridge is going to have some options. There is
So
a
there is a
possibility.
roadmap there.
There is a possibility. The folks in Atlanta and the folks in New Orleans are saying to at least the media whispers are that perhaps Derek Carr could be released, perhaps Kirk Cousins could be released. Those would be two more veterans who have won a lot of games in this league before.
Does that mean they have that same deal as Russell Wilson, or you'd partially pay because they make too much money? You couldn't pay them.
No. If they get released, what'll happen is they get to keep all their bonus money, and now they got to negotiate a new contract with someone if they are a street free agent.
Well, I know what Ron was asking was, will it be like what Russell Wilson's free agency was like last year, in which the Broncos owed him so much money and it was offsetting language where the Steelers signed him for a minimum deal because
Right.
whatever money they were
Well,
giving
that's
him
because he had
would just be
guaranteed money.
deducted. Yeah, well, so does Kirk
Right,
Cousins.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't know what the specifics
Kirk Cousins
are.
has a ton of guaranteed money left, so if they were to release him, I don't exactly know what the deal is with the offset language. My guess would be probably something similar to what the Russell Wilson situation.
I would think so.
In terms of if Atlanta decides to trade Kirk Cousins, they would have to still be responsible for the the signing bonus.
Right.
And from the reports I've read, whatever team that potentially trades for Kirk Cousins would basically be on the hook for around $27.5 million for the 2025 season. But that is a trade. If they release him,
Right.
I would expect whatever team that he would next sign with, it would be for a minimum deal because of the money he's still getting from Atlanta.
A couple other names you'd want to look at
Okay,
that will be free agents at the end of the season. If you are a Team X looking for a bridge, Andy Dalton,
Okay.
Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, and I
Okay.
personally would not want to look at Jameis Winston, but there are people who might decide that they
Right.
think Winston has done enough that you'd want to at least kick the tires on him. The point being,
That's good news then.
the point being, Ron, is that if you are looking for a bridge, there should be a shelf of bridge quarterbacks available for you to go get. If you want one, you should be able to find one.
Yeah, I mean, there
All right,
are also other, just other guys out there. Joe Flacco, he's going to be a free agent, former Super Bowl MVP, obviously on the older side. But
Right, I know.
if you pick a rookie quarterback, learning from a Super Bowl MVP for a year, not the worst thing. Guys like Mac
That'd be a very good
Jones,
thing. Right.
who's playing decently for the Jaguars, coming in for Trevor Lawrence. Even big Drew Lock potentially coming back. Who knows? I mean,
I thought Drew Lock, and he's been medium.
yeah, but it just depends on.
Right.
Obviously, it depends on the other offseason moves that the Giants make, how much money they want to allocate towards this potential bridge quarterback. Some of the guys we mentioned are going to get a lot more money than others. Others are going to get close to minimum deals. So it kind of depends on, I guess, the rest of the offseason moves and how much money the Giants front office wants to allocate towards that position.
Ron, I hope we made you
that's
feel a little
great.
bit better because there are options.
Quick footnote question. Quick footnote. Is it binary when the trades, or like does the selling team have to pay all the buying, or can't they split that?
The bonus money gets accelerated when a team trades a guy or cuts a guy. They're responsible for all the bonus money over the life of that contract. That gets accelerated into their cap. They've already paid it, and now it becomes a cap charge. Now, what Matt's talking about is if the guy has guaranteed money in 2025, and you were using
Russell
Cousins as an example.
Yep.
If Cousins has guaranteed money in 2025, I do believe that becomes an offset issue where you negotiate what it is that you want to pay him. You're responsible for that, and then the old team has to pay the rest of the guaranteed money on the base for that season.
Okay, you guys definitely made me feel better. I like the idea, by the way, very much.
Well,
Drafting.
you and I, Ron, are
Back
totally on the same page.
somebody else.
I personally would absolutely sign a bridge quarterback, no matter where I drafted a rookie. You know, I would definitely go to the bridge, and that rookie would sit his butt on the bench for at least a season, if not more.
But Paul, when you and I started watching football, nearly every rookie did that. Quarterback.
Well, that
You know,
was
the Dan Marino exception.
darn
but,
straight.
You know, yeah, most did it. Anyway, I really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for helping keep our Giant fans somewhat positive during this miserable year. And talk to you next year. Happy New Year. And
You too, Ron.
2025, let's go Giants.
Enjoy your holidays.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Did you have anybody else, by the way? Did I exhaust the names?
Those are pretty much. I mean, there are other quarterbacks out there, of course, but I feel like the guys we mentioned. I mean, Gardner.
I've spent a lot of time. Yeah, Gardner Minshew's the one that I didn't mention.
Will be another one,
That's a
but
good
he's
one.
obviously coming. He'll be coming back from
Injury.
a somewhat major injury.
Yeah.
I agree completely with you two. I know it is not the popular move now to draft a rookie high up in the first round and have him sit potentially for a full season. But I feel like that is why a lot of these rookie quarterbacks come in and right away don't look that great. Because as we know, quarterback is not an easy position to play in the NFL. It is difficult. There is a reason why there are so few elite and even great, good quarterbacks in the NFL. It is a hard position to play. I am fully on the same page that these young guys would benefit so much from being able to just sit and learn from a veteran for, at the very least, half a season, ideally a full season. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is obviously an exception because he's potentially going to go down as the greatest quarterback ever. He's on his way to that at least. He sat an entire full season behind Alex Smith. And, you know, he probably would still be Patrick Mahomes even if they had played him sooner. But doing that with Andy Reid as your coach and sitting behind a veteran like Alex Smith benefited him so much. And you see some of these, I mean, Jordan Love sat for 3 years behind Aaron Rodgers. not quite at the same level as Patrick Mahomes, but has had a pretty good start to his career.
Eli will tell you he was the better for being behind Kurt Warner for a year or two.
Yeah.
He'll tell you that, although they finally made the move 2/3 of the way into the season. Eli will tell you having Kurt Warner here was a really big plus.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago, and unfortunately, the NFL has sort of changed, and everyone's kind of become a little more impatient when it comes to
a little.
drafting a rookie quarterback high
They're
up.
like a tractor trailer going through the toll plaza at the turnpike. They're just zipping right through. Let's get this guy in there.
But yeah, if the Giants decide to draft a quarterback in, with their high first-round pick this year, I fully expect some veteran quarterback to be added to the room to sort of mentor, lead the way, and potentially start from day one.
And again, we don't want to disqualify or discount Locke or DeVito coming back. We're not doing that.
But
the guy was asking for names and other guys who might not be in the building. Those are some of the names we discussed.
100%. A reason why I also just feel a little more comfortable discussing this is 'cause right now the Giants have 0 quarterbacks under contract for 2025.
That is true.
Locke, DeVito, Boyle, all these guys are pending free agents after the season.
DeVito has an exclusive rights, though. They can get him back for a song without having to worry about him leaving.
For sure, but just technically under contract right now are no quarterbacks. So just from getting through a training camp standpoint and off-season program, there will be bodies needed to be added to that room, one way or the other.
We go back to the phones at 201-939-4513. Sammy in New York is next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
We're well,
Sammy.
sir. How you doing?
Yeah, I love your show. I always watch it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So why is everyone saying we should draft a QB? I feel like, why can't we get like Justin Fields from Pittsburgh or Sam Darnold from Minnesota and go with Travis Hunter? You got Justin Fields, Travis Hunter, Malik Neighbors.
Well, let me put it to you this way, Sammy. I have not gone through all of my college study yet. I will do that during the off season when I cram and then do the whole combine thing. But I'll tell you this. There was little doubt in my mind that Travis Hunter would get the Heisman Trophy. And there was little doubt in my mind, and at this point, I always reserve the right to change my decision, but I would think that Travis Hunter should be the number 1 pick in this draft. I'd be very shocked if he's not. I certainly would pick him number 1 if I had the number 1 overall choice. Okay? I'm just gonna put that out there right now because I just think he is that much of an impact player and can do it in 3 ways. He could do it on offense, do it on defense, and he could certainly do it on kick returns also if you wanted to use him there. He is quite a special guy. So I would have no problem drafting him with the number 1 overall pick. Absolutely no problem. And I think a lot of teams would probably feel that way.
Yeah, look, Travis Hunter is an unbelievable talent. No one is going to argue that. And in terms of just pure, football player, I agree. He probably is worthy of the number 1 pick. As we see every single year, though, quarterbacks seem to rise to the top of the draft because, as we mention all the time, quarterbacks are the most important position in all of football, in all of sports, really. But we're talking about football here. It is the most important position. And, the difference between drafting a quarterback and having that hopefully, be your franchise guy and signing someone in the free agency is that you get the benefit of signing or of getting that quarterback on a rookie contract, which if you hit on that pick and you have your guy playing under center on a rookie deal, that lets you spend all of the money that you would potentially be paying for a top tier quarterback. You spend that elsewhere on the roster and you get the benefit of the rookie quarterback on that rookie contract for at least, 4 years, making considerably under market value of what a good quarterback makes, and you can spend that money elsewhere. That would be the argument for drafting a quarterback as opposed to, signing Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold, with the season he's had, he's going to sign a deal for, 35, 40 plus million a year?
Probably even higher.
Which he deserves it, but that obviously prohibits you from spending that money elsewhere on the roster. And with the state of the Giants roster, with the holes that Justin Fields will definitely sign for a lot less than that. I mean, he signed for he got traded to the Steelers, but he just hasn't played that much this season. Since Russell Wilson took back over, he hasn't really played other than a handful of plays. I can't expect he's going to sign a big deal at all.
Sammy, he's a very interesting case because This is a guy who's a former number one pick who, according to the one who's looking at him, is still a potential franchise quarterback. He's still very young, still has a lot more development and room to grow. So he's a very interesting, he's almost a polarizing guy on the shelf of bridge quarterbacks, because is he a bridge quarterback, or does he still think of himself as somebody who should be a franchise? And the teams that are going to want to talk to him, are they thinking of him as a bridge, or are they thinking of him as still a potential franchise? Which is why any team that wants to discuss a future with Justin Fields, they're probably going to have to sign a deal. I'm going to guess, much like what Kurt Warner signed with the Giants back in 2004, where it'll probably be a year deal with incentives and then a player opt-out for year 2, so that Fields is going to want to have the flexibility of knowing that if the team that has him, circumstances develop that he's only going to be the bridge and not the franchise, he's going to want to get out. If he's going to become the franchise and has a great first season with whatever team signs him, then he's going to want to stay. So then he's going to want to opt in, and that second year of the deal is going to have a lot of major incentives and bonuses in it, because otherwise, why would he take it?
Yeah, I think he's just, no matter where he goes, I think he's just going to sign a 1-year deal. You sign a 1-year deal, sort of like a 1-year prove it, and it will be with a team where he is told that he has a legitimate chance to compete for the starting quarterback position. That's why I don't know if he necessarily will go somewhere that the team that just drafted a quarterback high up in the draft, because he'll know that's the future behind me. And so I think he fully wants to go somewhere where he at least has a chance to compete and earn that future franchise quarterback, title with the team. So my best guess is he signs a 1-year deal, probably not with a team that's picking a quarterback high up in the draft. I mean, you never know, but that would be my best guess. He's going somewhere where he has a chance to show in that 1-year deal that he can be the future quarterback, the future franchise quarterback. And if he plays well and lives up to that expectation, he can sign a long-term deal with that team. The team could potentially put the franchise tag on him, which I'm sure he would not like that. But at the very least, he'd be guaranteed a very large contract for the following season. So I can't imagine he signs more than a 1-year deal wherever he goes.
He's in the same boat as Warner is, in that he's going to want to resuscitate, his name. Because right now, he's not thought of as a starting quarterback in this league. Right now, he's just backing up Russell Wilson, and the results that he had when he was starting were mixed. See, that's why the 1-year deal with the player opt-out is really the best deal for him, because it gives him the most options. When Warner signed his deal here, he got the 1-year deal, and it had triggers and options that if he met them, and they were all easy to reach, so that he could prove himself to be good enough again, and then he could get out and put himself on the market, which he did, and then took the Cardinals to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'm just looking at him in the same lens that we kind of, looked at Sam Darnold going into this year, Baker Mayfield last year. Like, all those guys signed kind of small 1-year deals, but in opportunities where they had a chance to compete for the starting job, they played well, and then they earned that next big contract.
I don't think there's any doubt.
You really see many player opt-in deals for a year 2 anymore, really.
He's not going to sign a multi-year deal. That's the point.
Yeah.
It's either going to be one or one with a player opt-out. There's not going to be any multi-year deals for Justin Fields. I don't see that happening. Not off of being benched for Russell Wilson.
Number 1 pick draft Travis Hunter and sign Justin Fields in a 1-year deal.
Well, appreciate the time, Sammy. Thank you.
Thanks, Sammy. Yeah, look, obviously all the talk and buzz is about the quarterbacks, but we don't know what the plan is for the draft. I mean, for all we know, Travis Hunter could be the number 1 player on the Giants draft board. We have no idea.
No, we don't.
It's still too early. There's still a whole lot to figure out before we get to, the draft. So who knows? Who's to say? As of right now, just based on the teams that are, positioned at the top of the draft, if I had to guess, I would say that the 2 quarterbacks probably would be the first 2 picks, just because as of right now, the
Raiders
and Giants are the 2 teams with the 2 top picks, and quarterback is a need for both. But I fully expect Travis Hunter to be the first non-quarterback taken, and as high as I mean, it could be, depending on how the draft order ends up, he could go 1 or 2. If Giants or Raiders win a game and Jacksonville moves up, I fully would expect Jacksonville to take Travis Hunter. And same with, New England and any of those teams sitting at 3 wins that already have their quarterback figured out.
I think the interesting part about this, too, is that is there another team that so desperately wants a quarterback, and as we say, they overdraft them every year, is somebody going to come up from even below and say to, let's say, the Giants or the Raiders or whoever's up there in the top 3 and say, hey, we really want one of those guys. You know, you just signed a bridge quarterback in March, so how about we make a deal? And then all of a sudden, maybe you trade down and fill up a bunch of holes. Also a possibility. I think every door is open to the Giants. Wherever it is that they finish, every door is open. Nothing is to be discounted, no matter what people and the mob outside the building want to say. Everything is in play. Everything. They don't have to do anything. They could do whatever it is that they choose because there are so many options available to them. And I think that, you know, when you look at this draft, right, if you're to believe what most folks say, and we know that every time the combine comes, all of a sudden a few guys start rising up to the top of the draft who you didn't talk about much in November and December. That's the other part to this. Yep. Who are going to be the mystery guys that start getting a lot of ink in March? We don't even know that yet. There may be a couple.
For sure.
All right? But here's the other thing. Remember, free agency's in March. The draft is in April. Free agency is going to tell you an awful lot about what the Giants are going to do at quarterback. It will. By the amount of money, the terms of the contract, and who it is that they might decide to sign at quarterback. That's going to give you a big indication as to what they're thinking about doing with their first draft pick. It really is.
100%.
Okay? Now, let's make something very clear. Last year, when the Giants signed Drew Lock, they didn't know if Daniel Jones was going to be ready for September. They said that. We're not sure, medically, how well he's going to be. So they signed Lock with the thought that he would have a chance to hold the fort for the Giants in September with his experience, win some games, and then if Jones came in late, at least the season would not already have started under sea level. That was the whole point in signing Drew Lock. They didn't want to trust the team and the keys to Tommy because they felt that, you know what, Lock's experience, we'd feel better if he's got to start the first few weeks of the season. Now, when Russell Wilson came in, because you'll recall, folks, before Lock was signed, Russell Wilson stopped here before he went to Pittsburgh. And the narrative there, from what we heard from the Pittsburgh people, is that when Wilson stopped off at the Giants, he was being told that very same story. Lock wound up fitting into that equation. Russell Wilson did not want to hear that. Russell Wilson wanted to know that he could be the starter. He didn't want to know that Daniel Jones, when he gets healthy, he's going to be the number one. He didn't want to know that. He wanted to know that, okay, I go to a place like Pittsburgh, I know I can beat out Justin Fields. I want to go there. So I think you have to understand the context of how this quarterback puzzle is going to fit. The timing of it is going to be very important. So the free agent or the guy they retain in March is going to tell you a lot about what the Giants are going to do in the draft.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say that the only move in free agency that would make me think for sure that the Giants, like 100%, would not be taking a quarterback. I mean, unless they pull a move like the Falcons just did. But if the Giants were to go out and sign one of the top quarterback free agents to a big, massive deal, you would think that probably takes them out of the running for a quarterback at the top of the first round.
That will tell you. It will.
Most likely. I mean,
I don't think that's going to happen, by the way.
The Falcons just did it, so you never say never.
True.
That's all I'm going to say. But yes,
True.
Barring that happening, I think we're not going to have a for sure idea of how the Giants feel about the quarterbacks or if they're going to take one or not until April 25th or whatever the night the draft begins, because I expect whatever quarterback is brought in the offseason is probably going to be bridge quarterback, that level at least, in terms of like the salary that he's making.
Well, yeah.
That whoever it is, because we have no idea
With
what
the other
front
needs
office
the
could be
Giants
thinking of.
have to get in free agency, the bridge quarterback makes the most sense because that's going to be affordable.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. For
Pearson,
sure.
who's on the huddle this week? Do we know?
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock. Speaking of devil, Giants starting quarterback against the Atlanta Falcons. Kickoff Sunday, 1 o'clock. Pre-game show on WFAN, coming to you live from Tommy's Tavern in Clifton, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that starts at 11 a.m., 2 hours of pregame on WFAN, followed by the game at 1, followed by the 2-hour postgame on WFAN, and, of course, the 1-hour MSG Giants postgame live as well. From Outside Tech, I'm Paul Dottino. This has been Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We'll see you next time.